Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Tracy Alexander. And coming up in today's newscast, the date is set for July 1, but reports now there'll be no decision on Israel's plans to expand its sovereignty over parts of the West Bank by that date. We'll bring you the latest as US officials continue talks with Jerusalem. As COVID-19 cases continue to sit above 200 per day, we look at a shocking report showing anti-Semitic accusations that Jews and Israel are behind the pandemic. Plus, music to our ears. Major studio label Universal is setting itself up here in the Holy Land, putting Israeli artists on the world stage. Well, some 48 hours to go before Israel's Knesset is expected to be presented with the Prime Minister's plans to expand Israeli control over parts of Judea and Samaria. While July 1 is the earliest possible date that Israel can make the move, the big question mark is around how much territory will be annexed, to what extent the United States will support a unilateral move, and whether any decision will have been reached at all by 2 days' time. Here's more. Running blood red, the Donald Trump Square fountain in Petah Tikva coloured by activists and vandalised with graffiti reading "Annexation will cost us blood." It comes as international negotiators and special advisors to the US president arrive in Israel to discuss the execution of Trump's Peace to Prosperity plan. Avi Berkowitz and Scott Leith of the US Security Council sitting down with the Israeli Prime Minister and alternate Prime Minister ahead of the expected July 1 date in which the decision on how to expand Israel's sovereignty over parts of Judea and Samaria will be put to the Knesset.
It makes clear that the Jewish people have a valid, legal, historic, and moral claim to Judea and Samaria, and it supports Israel's sovereignty over the Jewish communities there.
In a video message addressing the virtual summit of Christians United for Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues.
It doesn't uproot a single Jew or Arab. Enough with ethnic cleansing. President Trump's plan is anchored in a foundation of truth. It confronts a great lie head-on. The lie that the Jewish people are foreign colonialists in our own ancestral homeland.
But as protests are held in the streets of Amman, a strategic and important partner for Israel, Jordan, isn't playing ball. Once again, King Abdullah reportedly making it clear that it will not accept even a limited expansion over Judea and Samaria, threatening to ditch or downgrade its 1994 peace treaty with Israel if it goes ahead with the move. A similar stance taken by the Palestinian Authority, with President Mahmoud Abbas threatening a harsh response if Israel annexes even an inch. But on the streets, we're seeing apathy by the Palestinian people. Despite a large setup prepared anti-annexation protest in Ramallah failing to rally a crowd of more than 200, the so-called deal of the century has been rejected by Palestinian leadership out of hand. Netanyahu, for his part, calling for a change of stance.
I encourage the Palestinians not to lose another opportunity, not to waste another century trying to destroy Israel. They should embrace President Trump's vision. They should sit down and negotiate in good faith. They should be prepared to negotiate a historic compromise that can bring peace to Israelis and Palestinians alike.
And joining me with more on the latest developments is foreign relations columnist for JNS, Ruti Bloom. Ruti, a pleasure to have you with us. Now, we're hearing reports that Netanyahu will in fact make a speech on July 1 instead of making any moves towards annexation. What can you tell us?
Well, obviously I have no idea what speech he's going to make, and it's possible that he is going to announce a postponement, or maybe the opposite. Maybe he's going to announce some kind of extension of Israeli law in some of the parts of Judea and Samaria. But what I will say, I have been in the United States now for 2 weeks. When I left Israel, the entire focus in Israel was on whether the U.S. administration was basically backing down, no longer supporting unilateral moves, etc. On this end, what one can see is that that President Trump's peace plan is not even spoken about on any of the news broadcasts. In fact, there's a civil war going on right now in the United States, a cultural civil war. And the presidential election is about to take place in November. There is such chaos here right now, and also because of the pandemic, as infections increase, as they're doing in Israel with increased testing. So it appears at this moment that that President Trump's peace plan is really low on the priority ladder here right now.
Right. So it seems that there are concerns to that same extent here in Israel, hearing Benny Gantz talking about COVID-19 also being a priority for Israel and July 1 not being a holy date. And we also heard him reportedly telling the US team here that there are bigger fish to fry, like unemployment, of course, also linked to COVID-19. That's also because we know Benny Gantz is the defense minister. He's no doubt concerned also about the fallout of such a move. So, Ruti, what are his interests here?
Yes, you see, Benny Gantz is in a completely different situation from President Trump. Gantz, from the beginning, when he ostensibly came out in support of the Peace to Prosperity Plan, he immediately qualified that by stating that this would have to be in conjunction with or with the approval of the international community and other regional allies such as Jordan. Gantz, in fact, has all along has wanted to postpone this or he wants to try to garner support for it, which will not come, not open support, in fact. And I think Gantz knows that. It's not because of the coronavirus pandemic or the economy. Gantz's attitude is a political one.
All right, Ruti, thank you for that analysis and that insight there.
Thank you.
Now, residents of Judea and Samaria are all waiting to hear the fate of their communities. And joining us now is Ziv Maor, who lives in the settlement of Tekoa in Gush Etzion. Ziv, a pleasure to have you with us. Now, amidst these reports from US sources that there will be a delay in the move to expand Israeli sovereignty, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I blame for this delay not only political elements within the political Israeli system. For instance, our Minister of Foreign Affairs went against the policy of the government and instructed foreign visitors to Israel against the plan itself, but also I put the blame for that for some subversive element within the Israeli government and within the Israeli military. From what I see on the ground, I do not see any preparations on behalf of the Israeli military. Currently, not only takes care of the security aspects of the region, but also we have the civil administration. I am not seeing preparations for the civil administration to be closed and shut down as it is supposed to be once the sovereignty will take place. I understand that the officers in the military who are in charge of doing that, of shutting down the civil administration and giving the authority to a civil entity that will take place into place, do not agree with the policy and they subvert against it. And under these circumstances, these are the fails to blame. Now, from what I see, the American administration responds to this subvergence and basically claims what is visible. Israel itself is not preparing for the application of sovereignty. Thus, the American government is on the same place. I'm not seeing any content, any dialogue between the parties that implies that if Israel will indeed take the measurement and not only declare its sovereignty on Judea and Samaria, but also take practical actions to do that, I do not see the White House goes against that.
But Ziv, despite what you're seeing, how are you feeling? Of course, those that are living in Judea and Samaria, no doubt, are wanting an answer to this.
Well, to be honest, the effect of the application of the sovereignty on our day-by-day life will be quite minor. The only difference would be the persons with whom we are in touch with municipal affairs. This is not a story. The story is not about the day-by-day life. The story is about the recognition of our generations-long right to this portion of land by a substantial superpower such as the United States and its satellite states of the fact that we are in fact in control in this area. This move will put end to the conflict, at least regarding to the 30% that will be under Israeli sovereignty in the eyes of an important entity such as the United States. Now, what I do expect for the practical result, for the day-by-day result, for this to be is a diminished motivation for anti-Semitic elements within the Palestinian territory to execute terrorism against Israelis. The very motivation to commit terror against the Israelis and against Jews is to believe that such actions give any progress to the anti-Semitic dreams of cleansing the land of Israel from Jews. Once there is an acknowledgement, an American acknowledgement in the sovereignty of Jews over this area, I believe that such elements will no longer be motivated to execute terrorism.
Well, this is there is hope that it is a step towards peace, as the Prime Minister is promising, and we'll see in 48 hours the truth of what we are expected to see moving forward. Ziv, thank you for that insight.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
All right, well, another coronavirus fatality in Israel, and still no decision from the government about what to do to flatten the curve. Nittany Manson reports.
Israeli ministers at loggerheads after a coronavirus cabinet meeting ended with no decision on what to do about imposing restrictions, as Israel sees a staggering spike of COVID-19 cases. 250 people is far too many, according to Health Minister Yuli Edelstein, who wants to clamp down on public gatherings and events, saying Israel's at the beginning of a second wave of the pandemic. As areas with high infection rates are transformed into restriction zones, the health ministry downgrading the lockdown of several neighborhoods in Tiberias to a couple of streets, saying a statistical error caused parts of the city to be closed off by mistake. 319 people have died from the virus. Almost 24,000 have tested positive in Israel, with more than 230 cases detected in the past 24 hours. But a sigh of relief for those rendered unemployed by the virus. Eligibility for benefits will be extended until mid-August, a welcome announcement after the finance ministry said the stipends wouldn't continue into July.
Well, Israel's annual LGBTQ Pride Month is normally marked by spectacular parades, putting focus on a community who are still today fighting for equal rights. The events promote compassion, inclusivity and fun, but due to the coronavirus, it's been marked differently this year. Take a look. Police patrolling in Tel Aviv's Pride gathering, keeping COVID-19 restrictions in check, as thousands across the country gathered to mark Israel's month-long celebration of the LGBTQ community in 4 major cities: Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Haifa and Beersheba. Colourful and peaceful rallies taking place in lieu of the annual Pride parades cancelled this year due to COVID-19.
The police, security, safety and health measures are taking place here in Jerusalem in order to prevent any incident from taking place. Security level on COVID-19, 1,250 people are allowed to take part in the event here in Jerusalem in the center of town, and we're making sure that social distancing and all safety measures are being implemented. Hundreds of police officers are in the
Security kept tight with the lead up to the Jerusalem demonstration, seeing more than 24 anti-gay activists arrested as a precaution. The Israeli Prime Minister's son Yair tweeting his shock, saying police were seen stopping Haredi people for questioning while secular people were waved through. Sunday's events marking 5 years since 16-year-old Shira Bunky was stabbed to death in a deadly attack on Jerusalem's Pride Parade participants by a Jewish extremist. Now, a prominent modern Orthodox rabbi in Israel has issued a religious ruling overnight against the use of gay conversion therapy. Rabbi and Professor Daniel Sperber has come out lambasting spiritual leaders who claim the practice can be effective. Now, conversion therapists can use a variety of techniques like shaming and other emotionally traumatic or painful stimuli to make their victims associate those factors with their LGBTQ identities and treat homosexuality as a mental illness. And Rabbi Sperber joins us now with more. Rabbi, great to have you with us. Now, you're saying this kind of therapy can have severe and long-term consequences. Tell us more.
I was, I was approached by a national organization of, 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 the Organization of Sex Therapists, which consists of doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and is a part of the International Association of Sexologists. And they presented me with material which I was already partially acquainted with from other sources that made it very clear two different issues. The first is that it's to a large extent ineffective, and secondly, that it creates very much dangerous after effects, psychological, emotional, and even physical. So much so that there's a large percentage that are known to have committed suicide as a result of this type of therapy.
That's absolutely awful. And now, Rabbi, while it's discouraged by the health ministry, it does remain legal in Israel, and it's still accepted in some conservative and orthodox circles. Do you believe it should be outlawed in Israel?
Well, it's already forbidden in the United States and in European countries and another number of other countries. It's been defined, certain aspects or certain techniques that are used has been defined actually as torture. And therefore, in my opinion, I don't know what the government wants to do about it, but from a halachic point of view, from purely Jewish religious point of view, I think it's completely forbidden. You're not allowed to torture people, even against their own, even with their own consensual agreement. A person is not allowed to harm themselves. You don't mend a vessel by breaking it, and you don't ameliorate a situation by creating an even worse situation with greater damage.
Well said, Rabbi. And as a religious leader then, how do you suggest that people behave with a sense of love and compassion around this issue?
Well, firstly, I think it has to be clarified that the Jewish halachic legal position is that sex relationships between two males is forbidden by biblical law. Two males can love each other, they can live together, and they have to control certain sexual desires that they have if they want to keep to the law. I think that we have to be very sympathetic towards them. I think that Jewish law seeks to be more liberal and to be understanding of people that have certain difficulties, traumatic experiences. We have to limit those traumatic experiences, and we have to give legitimacy to good social relationships which exclude anal sex between males. I think also the society has to see such as legitimate. What people do within their own houses, in their private life, is something that we're not meant to peek into their private life. And that's actually something that was learned from the following week's Parashat HaShavua, that the tents of Israel in the desert didn't have their windows facing one another and didn't have their entrances facing one another, so the people couldn't peep into the private lives of other people.
And I suppose that when we are, sorry to interrupt you, Rabbi, but when we are gathering, of course, in public and we're seeing each other in the street, I suppose the only way to address a fellow human is with love. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we're making a quick gear change here as we move into our weekly check-in with the world of entertainment in Israel with our Emmanuel Kadosh. Emmanuel, good to see you again.
You too.
What are you dishing up for us today?
All right, Tracy, so we have a lot to cover today as usual, and it's pretty much all revolving around the merging of international world of music and TV with Israel. So I'll start off with the major music label Universal Music branching over to the Middle East and becoming the first major label to open its doors in Israel.
Exciting.
I know. It's focusing on giving local artists in Israel the platform and opportunity to reach worldwide audiences.
Well, it's about time, I'd say. We've already seen so many Israeli artists closing deals with international labels like Noah Kirill, who sings Pouch.
ולכל מי ששואל זה רק אני הפאוט והחור של ישראל.
Yeah, I definitely love that song. So stars like Noah Kirel, who recently signed with Atlantic Records in what is reportedly the largest music deal for an Israeli artist ever, now have the chance to be on radios all across the world and represent Israel on a much larger scale. Basically, now with Universal opening its doors here in the country, they are looking to, quote, identify, sign, and develop the best domestic artist talent, which is super exciting for aspiring artists that would never have thought that they would even get the chance to get into the door of a major music label like this.
Totally, and I also read that the Israeli duo Static and Ben El also signed to a major music label a few months back.
Right, that is true. Static and Ben El signed with Capitol Records in a groundbreaking deal as well, which apparently consists of producing 7 albums in the next 10 years. But it's funny that you mentioned them because recently Static, Ben El, and Nasrin Kadri all joined together in a video that celebrates the LGBTQ community and the Gay Pride Parade, which unfortunately isn't happening this year due to coronavirus.
It's such a shame that they had to cancel the parade, but it's not going to stop us, of course, is it, Emmanuel, from listening to their song. Let's hear some of it.
יש מקום לכל אחד It's time for lovey-dovey רק שלא תגמור לבד I wanna go and party איזה לילה מיוחד I wanna feel your body אתה תהנה מיד Love is a very big deal מאוד גדול בטח שהערב מתחיל
Such a good video and an amazing collaboration showing just how important it is to come together because it generates something special like that.
Definitely. So what's even more special about the song, the music video, and the collab in general is that the song is performed in Hebrew, English, and Arabic, and Kadri is actually a Muslim convert to Judaism who sings in both Hebrew and Arabic.
Totally. Such a beautiful and meaningful tribute to the LGBTQ community. So what else do you have for us in the world of entertainment?
So changing it up a bit from the music scene, we're moving into the TV world, a new Israeli TV series called Tiran, which tells the story of a young Mossad operative that is on a mission to hack into and ultimately disable an Iranian nuclear reactor in order for the IDF to carry out an airstrike. The whole thing sounds amazing. Apple TV Plus actually purchased the rights to the 7-part series and is set to co-produce its international streaming.
Now, I really want to see this.
I know.
It sounds like the perfect show to be especially offered to international audiences after we saw the massive success of other Israeli-inspired shows like Fauda. So when does it air?
So the show premiered exactly 1 week ago. So if I were you, I would finish this show and then head to watching it.
Well, if anyone has an Apple TV to give me, I'll be there with bells on. I'm so excited. Thank you for the update, Emmanuel.
Of course.
All right, well, let's take a look at the weather forecast now. We'll be happy for the clouds with these temps. A low in Tel Aviv this evening of 74 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 23 degrees Celsius, and a solid 83 Fahrenheit for tomorrow, that's 28 degrees Celsius. And now before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel.
We are the IDF. We come from every part of Israel, and we work together to defend our families,
our friends, our homes.
We may look different.
We may come from different regions and statuses and backgrounds.
But that's our key to success.
We work together to find solutions to impossible problems.
We are a combination of differences.
And we are better because of each and every one.
We are the people's army.
The people of Israel, protecting the people of Israel.
We are everyone, and we are proud.
Wow, that was published on the IDF's Twitter page, and hopefully one day no parent will have to send their child off to the army. All right, well, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.43 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Tracy Alexander, and thank you so much for watching.